What's up, everyone? It's Mike Mooney here with the Steel Studio Podcast, and today I want to talk a little bit about the running back situation on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know we're going into a season where we probably aren't going to be renewing James Conner's contract. I think everybody expects that James Conner is going to walk based on his cost. He could come back for the vet minimum and potentially be a second string back, which I would be okay with. He'd be a solid second string back, but I think the Steelers really need to address this position this year, as I think most people obviously think the same thing. So whether you think it's the O-line that was the problem or the running back, I think that we obviously have to address both. So speaking to that, I don't think there's a lot of free agents out there that are going to be available at an affordable price. Based on our cap space, we're likely going to need to draft a running back. I think that most people know that. There are moves to be made in the free agent market, but I don't think we're going to find our future Pittsburgh Steeler style running back in the free agent market. So with that being said, I know through February and now we're halfway into March pretty much, people have been doing a lot of mock drafts and everything, and I've seen kind of two different positions addressed. I've seen the left tackle addressed in mock drafts in round one quite a bit, and I've seen the running back position addressed in round one quite a bit. And I really want to focus on the running back position because I think that would actually be a better first-round draft pick. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that statement. And I don't want to say that's the official Steel Studio view either, because I know that Rick may disagree with that statement as well. But until we have a podcast to go further in depth together with it, this is my perspective. So the reason I say that is based on the top backs available in the draft, and I'm going to go in and talk about each one. But one key thing I want to talk about here is if we address line early, there's a lot of good linemen in this draft. There are a ton of good linemen in this draft. And we don't need to address linemen necessarily early. We've gotten linemen later in drafts in the past, and it's been actually relatively successful for us. So look what we did last year. We picked up Kevin Dotson. He is a fantastic lineman. He could have started the entire year last year. He came in our season opener and replaced Stephen Wisniewski, who was on our team at that point in time. He's been... And Wisniewski was replacing DeCastro at that point in time, but he filled the role immediately. And then obviously as we shifted with Filer injuries and things like that, he came in and he filled the role fantastically all year whenever he was needed. And that's a 4th round draft pick. And what a steal! What a hidden gem! And that right there is what gives me the confidence that the Steelers can address that position, or not guard, sorry, but the O-line, the center position, the left tackle, the right tackle, potentially later in the draft. There's already a ton of linemen available in this draft, and I think that there's room for us to work with that later in the draft. So that's why I want to get into the running backs more, because I think that we could, in a first or second round pick, get a running back and get a good franchise back that's going to stick with us, for a few years. So with that being said, I'm going to get right into it. Just looking through everything. The first back I want to talk about is Etienne, the running back out of Clemson. So a good, strong back, and I know a lot of people in Steelers Nation are really optimistic about this guy, and I'm not as optimistic about him as a few other backs coming into this draft. I don't think that we should draft him. His size concerns me. This is a 5'10", 200-pound back, average size. His projected 40 time is a little faster than some of the other ones. It's projected to be a 4.46, so we'll see in the combine. I don't know what the combine's even going to look like this year, but we'll see what that looks like. We'll see if his times it improves or not. The guy ran really well in 2020. He did show improvements in strength, from year over year from 2019, and his yards after contact were pretty decent. So he was also able to catch out in the open, and out of the backfield and out in the open. He ran a lot of wheel routes, which is relatively lucrative for them. So this is, like I said, he's out of Clemson. He could be a 3-down starter. He's fast and he's explosive, and he's going to be a good starter for a team in the NFL. I don't know if that's the Steelers, but he's going to be a good starter for a team in the NFL. He's a good check down receiver. Like I said, he can catch a quick route for a good chunk of yardage gain. He's just fast, but he's not a big back. So we see a lot of good running fundamentals, a lot of patience with feet to let the holes develop, and a lot of people liked that when we had Le'Veon Bell, and I liked that when we had him too, because that was his skill set. And so, depending on your running scheme, that can be pretty good. He's not my pick just because I think there's a better running back available in the draft early on. This would be a good secondary, in my opinion, a good optional pick. If he's available in the second round, I would take him, obviously. Going to be a good running back in the NFL, just not that big, hard-hitting back that I think we're looking for. And in my opinion, I think it's important to have a good-sized back that's big and physical. They don't have to be as fast. He doesn't have to run a 4.46 40, but give me a 4.5-ish, maybe a 4.55. In that middle ground where they're still fast and explosive, but they can hit like Derrick Henry. Okay, and I don't know if anybody in this draft is at that level, obviously yet. But looking at who could be, okay. So that takes me into the next running back. Najee Harris out of Alabama. And this is the guy that I personally think the Steelers should go for if he's available at our first pick, potentially. Unless there's a huge playmaker there that we see that really stands out, that other people have just completely passed on for no reason. I think that this is the guy. I think there's plenty of left tackles available later on. I think we pick up a center in the free agent market. I think that we've got a lot to work with the O-line. And based on veteran availability with this free agent market, I know that I addressed it in my last video, and I know Rick addressed it in Thursday Thoughts. I think that there's going to be quite a bit of mid-level to higher-level talent available from a veteran's perspective in the 28 to 32-year-old range for a lot cheaper than people are expecting. But to get back to Najee Harris, this is the guy in my opinion. He's a little taller for a running back. He's 6'2", but he weighs 230, which I think is an important piece because none of the other backs really weigh that much in this draft. He played for the Crimson Tide, obviously, and he showed improved receiving ability this past year compared to the years prior. This year also proved that he could be, successful three-down back in the NFL. I think there's no doubt he's going to be able to start in the NFL and at least be impactful. His skill set's pretty good, and it's just continued to improve through his collegiate career. But in my opinion, what stands out for him is just he has this excellent combination of size and speed. And that's what I really like. He has the ability to just run over tacklers. And that's important because if holes don't develop in your O-line, because your O-line isn't as good as it, once was or potentially could be, just depending on who we have left after free agency and where we sit. Maybe our O-line isn't as strong as it once was, obviously. And so it's important to have a running back that can just physically just run people over, right? It's nice to have a running back who can be patient and wait for holes to open, but what if those holes don't come? And you can't be dependent on running towards one side. So, to give you an example, and I love this player that I'm about to call out, but let's talk about Alvin Villanueva. Let's say somehow he stayed on, right? I don't personally think he's going to get a big lucrative contract like people think he is. So let's say he stayed on. The guy is a fantastic pass blocker. Terrible run blocker, in my opinion. And that's okay. But you can't wait for holes to develop with a guy like that because the hole is immediately available because he kicks the outside and then it's gone. So that gets plugged relatively quickly by defenses. That would either require the use of a fullback, which I don't see the Steelers heavily using. We just don't. Even with Watt on the team, we just don't do it. I don't know why. I really like using a fullback. I like the I formation. That would require use of a fullback or, replacing a left tackle for somebody who doesn't kick out immediately every time. Obviously we don't know what our O-line is going to look like next year, which is why I think this is an important pick. So you can set what your O-line looks like right off the bat by picking somebody different in the first round But based on the depth of the O-line in this draft, I really think that this is the pick for us. So, Najee Harris, like I said, he's 6'2", weighs 230. His projected 40 time is a 4.53-ish, which I liked. They think he's going to go in the first or second round. He's a natural runner. He bounces off defenders. He's got some weaknesses. He doesn't check down as much as Etienne, but the guy is quick and he's powerful, and that's really, really important. We want to get him in the open field and just let him run over DBs. You just got to get him past that first level of defenders, and this guy's gone. And that's what he did in college, and this guy, is immediately going to be a starter in the NFL. Wherever he goes. In my opinion, I just want it to be the Steelers. So, good vision, a decent patience, and he runs downhill, which is important. So, the next running back is Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. So this guy's a good player too. He's not as big as Najee Harris. He's 5'10", 220, but same speed, same estimated speed, I should say. We don't know with the combine situation, but they think he's going to run a 40 and 4.53. So another running back they think is going to go pretty soon, first or second round. I think he'll be a second round pick. And depending on our picks, depending on what we do, depending on what we do in the first round, as I think about this, this wouldn't be a bad one to grab. Definitely, if he was still available in the third, I would take this running back. He played for the Tar Heels. Obviously, he's fast, he's powerful. Again, somebody who could have 3 down starting potential in the NFL. I don't know if that's a guarantee. He could be a swap in and out. Some people say this guy could be the first running back drafted in the draft. Maybe they're seeing things that we aren't. With the Tar Heels schedule, it's just not as powerful as the previous 2, right? So, even Clemson doesn't have that hard of a schedule, The SEC with Alabama is so competitive compared to the Tar Heels. I just don't think their schedule is that competitive. So maybe this guy just hasn't faced people that are that difficult, and he didn't completely dominate. But anyways, this guy's physical. He people say they describe him as an engine, which I think that sounds like a good thing. He can overwhelm a defense, which is important. He's powerful. He's got a good size and a good style, which a lot of teams look for. I don't personally care about that stuff. To me, it's does this person get the job done or not? So what seems to be the case, though, is that people really struggle to bring him down at the second level. You're seeing a lot of people. I think this is where they get the engine description from, because you're seeing a lot of people that need to jump on him and gain on him and pursue him. And so you're requiring 3 or 4 defenders to bring him down, which is fantastic. Again, it's a good running back for a team that doesn't have as good of an O-line. Somebody who can get to that second level, who can get a guaranteed 4 to 5 yards per carry. We're not getting 2 to 3 yards a carry if something goes wrong. This is somebody who guarantees to get you at least into that level and can hold off a couple people. So, another good running back here. He's really good in short yardage and goal line situations. And obviously, what we saw in 2020 from a collegiate perspective, his total touchdowns obviously showed that, right? So another good back here. One that I would pass on to get Najee Harris, but otherwise him or Etienne would be my next pick. it just depends on what the Steelers are going to do with free agency before the draft. So to get into the next one, though, Kenny Gainwell was a running back out of Memphis. I have the same concerns in terms of schedule. Maybe that doesn't matter. So he is 5'11", 191 pounds, faster back. He runs his 40 in 4.47 seconds. This is somebody they think is going to go a little bit later because of his 2020 situation, which I'm going to address. This is somebody they think is going to go maybe third or fourth round, and I'm surprised about that being actually that high. This is a smaller back in terms of weight. He's a little bit taller than some. 5'11", I guess mid-sized in terms of height. Unfortunately, he had a rough 2020. He lost 4 members of his family to COVID-19, which that's hard. Obviously, that's really difficult. And so obviously he then was impacted significantly, and he decided to sit out the 2020 season. So from a statistics perspective, it's not a lot to look at, but he did not opt back in at all at any point in time, for the future. So now he's beginning to prepare for the draft instead. So to talk about his statistics from a 2019 perspective, people describe him as electric, which I know a lot of people in the NFL love that word electric. And I don't know if that's better than engine or not. I don't know, but he's a fast guy. And in college, it's different. It's hard to measure these stats because a lot of these defensive linemen just don't. They just let people right through. So this guy averaged 6.3 yards per carry, which is nothing to scoff at. He had 1,459 yards for 13 touchdowns. 1,459. I was gonna say almost 1,500, but anyways, he was a strong receiver as well. He had a little over 600 yards receiving, 51 receptions, and he had 3 touchdowns through the air as well, which is good. So he's fast and he's explosive. Like I said, he's electric. He's definitely going to be a threat. I don't think he's a 3-down back, maybe a 3rd down back in terms of passing or run option, depending. Just depends on the scheme he goes with. But I see him going to an NFC team. I see him going to somebody who's looking for a little bit more of a hybrid game. He could get a little bit stronger for the NFL. Maybe he is. We don't know what he looks like, right? We haven't seen him since 2019. But he's young and he's got plenty of time. So, I still expect somebody to pick him up in the middle of the draft. I wouldn't mind him being on the Steelers. But to me, this guy reminds me a lot of Anthony McFarland. And I'm not the biggest McFarland fan after last year's kind of disappointing performance. So we'll see what happens with Kenny. But I think that's a pass for the Steelers right now, unless he's available way later in the draft. And, we've filled all of our other needs. The next one, and I hope I'm not butchering any names here. This is Kylin Hill. He's a running back out of Mississippi State. So another decent-sized back, a little bit more towards the middle again. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. 40 time that they estimate is going to be about 4.52-ish. They think he's going to go in the 3rd to 4th round, and I'm inclined to agree. So he looked really, really good in the season opener for Mississippi State. He's got a lot of a receiving ability, and that actually led to an upset over LSU in their opener. And so people forget about that because that was at the beginning of the season, but that's important to remember, I think. And this is a decent back, and that I don't know, that brought a lot of light to him. So he's also a good run blocker, a good pass blocker. Run blocker. He's a running back. He's a good pass blocker, and that's really, really important. Obviously, you don't see a lot of that. You see a lot of these guys, they just want to run the ball, otherwise they don't give a shit. And I don't know, that's important. His downside, though, is he was suspended over a locker room incident and sat the rest of the season through 2021. And so we don't know what the heck's going to happen, what it's going to look like. I think from a Steelers perspective, the last thing we need is another locker room person. We've had these guys that have gotten their fair share of attention, and now they're no longer with the team, and we don't want that shit anymore. And so I think it would be a pass, but I do think wherever he ends up, if he fixes his attitude scenario and he's good to go, this guy could be dominant in the NFL. I do think this could be a really good running back if he head down a good path, put his head down, in the off season here and worked his ass off, this could be a really good running back in the NFL. But to move forward now, I want to talk about a little bit about Trey, the running back out of Ohio State. 6-foot guy, 221, a little bit slower. They think he's going to run his 40 around 4.6-ish. That's probably why he dropped a little bit in the draft. He also split carries, so I don't know. We'll talk about it, obviously, but he split carries last year with Master Teague, and it just didn't. You know what I mean? That hurts your drafting ability. Probably a 4th to 5th round pick, I think. Maybe 3rd, depending on who's feeling opportunistic on the guy. Ohio State's a decent team, obviously, so. But like I said, he split carries with Master Teague in a lot of the games in 2020, but he did come through with a really strong game against Northwestern, and that obviously led Ohio State to a tough win. That was when they couldn't pass. They could not pass that game at all, and he from there on out then finished 2020 pretty well. He ran hard, and he showed some power moves to pick up yards after contact, and I think that he did a pretty good job. Nothing that stood out, nothing drastic that stood out compared to some of the other running backs, but I don't know. I think it's a decent back, somebody who I would be happy to take on the Steelers again if a few other things didn't pan out. I expect him to be a rotational back in the NFL as well. I could eat my words with that one. This guy has proven a lot of people wrong time and time again. But, from what I've seen, I expect him to be a rotational back. And then lastly, I'm going to finish up with Larry Rountree. There's other backs in this draft that are good and everything, but these are the ones that I wanted to address. This is a running back out of Missouri, so if you guys don't know anything about Larry Rountree, it's crazy because some of these guys they don't talk about at all. And this may be one of them. I've heard a couple analysts mention some things about him, but there's not a lot. In my opinion, though, this is somebody who should be higher. They expect him to be a 4th round pick, and he's average size, average speed, but the guy had an impressive Senior Bowl, and to me, that's important. You're playing against other good players, and I think that this guy really could become a starting back in the NFL. He's 5'10", 210 pounds. He's going to run a 4.5 40, they think, depending on, again, the combine situation. But I think he's a sleeper. Everyone says 4th round for this guy. He's a tough runner, though. People say he was dependent more on the O-line than he should have been. And I don't know. I think he's a good value pick, and I would be very happy if the Steelers took him, 4th or 5th round. I would be very happy with it. And I think the Larry Rountree could potentially be a starter in the NFL. If you haven't seen this guy's clips, check them out. They're all over the internet, but I think he's better than a lot of analysts are saying. And maybe teams are going to pick up on that, and he's going to go a little bit higher. So we'll see. Average size, average speed in terms of running backs in the draft, but I don't know. Undervalued. I will say Missouri's schedule isn't that tough. That's another caveat, but you never know. He was a little bit more dependent on his team than people liked. He was dependent on that O-line. But I think overall this is a good player, and I think he's better than some of the previous ones I've actually mentioned, so you just never know where he's going to land. So another wild card in the draft that could turn out to be a hidden gem. But that's all I've got in terms of the running back situation. Like I said, my preference would be Najee Harris, and I know a lot of other people have said the same thing. I know a lot of Steelers-driven analysts have said how stupid that is. I know other ones have said that that's a great idea. My thing is, if he's available, the guy's a winner. Pick him up, bring him to the Steelers, and we need that. We just need to get that winning mentality back. I feel like we lost that Steelers vibe in recent history, in the past few years. I feel like we lost that we're badass winners vibe, and I think a big, strong running back will help bring that back. I don't think completely, but will help bring that back. We need that Steelers chip on our shoulder. This is the Pittsburgh freaking Steelers, man. This isn't I don't want to get into that game where everyone else is doing this hybrid, quick, do this, quick, do that, quick running back to the side, quick run option, fast running back. And you know what I mean? It just seems like 7-on-7 football at that point. We need to be Steelers smash mouth football, get in the I formation, and get this big ass dude down there and run him down everybody's throats until they choke on it. You know what I mean? Like get this guy out there, get one of these bigger backs out there, and just kick some ass. And I think that this could be somebody who, in divisional football stands out and steps up. And for us, that's important. Obviously, as our division becomes more competitive. The Browns are becoming more competitive. I think that everyone's sleeping on the Bengals. I think they're going to be way more competitive with Joe Burrow. We already saw it a little bit, right? I think the Ravens are going to drop a little, but the Ravens are the Ravens. They're always competitive. Even when they had a couple losing seasons a few years back, they were still competitive. So we'll see what happens here, but I think this is somebody who carries us through that for a couple years here and becomes, a leader on the Steelers. I know running backs, people say, they come and go so easily. But in my opinion, I think it's time that we invest in a good one again. Because we saw what happened without super strong running back talent. And that's no diss to James Conner. I think that he's an excellent player. I'd be happy to retain him for the right price. I don't know what that price looks like. I'm not super smart when it comes to the salary cap. But I think that this would be a good pickup. So really, any of these guys, I'd be happy to take on the Steelers. But I think that that's my priority. But like I said, that's my recap on the, on my take on the running back center in this draft. We're going to talk more and more about each position. We're going to talk about them from a Steelers perspective and just an NFL perspective on who's this guy, what's his stats, etc. So expect that stuff to come out here in the next few weeks as we get closer and closer to the draft. But that's all I've got for you today, Steelers Nation. Go Steelers. We love you all. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. We're on Spotify, obviously YouTube, every major platform. And that's it. Have a great day.